Hello everyone, my name is Nick Mathern and this is my guide to creating your own virtual choir. As a part of creating a virtual choir, I think it's important to think about the overall arc for teaching a piece virtually. The first thing you need to do is select a piece which is easily attainable by your singers. Because students are going to be learning this piece on their own in their homes instead of in person with you, you may need to adjust your expectations. Typically, I think it works best if you go down at least one, if not two levels in your repertoire choices, because singers will not have the traditional scaffolding of your teaching or the aural supports like the piano and other people singing with them. So you need to kind of embrace the environment that they're going to be in, that they're going to be on their own, and they may not feel as comfortable singing. So to do that, you bring down the level just a little bit. You still bring the same level of intensity and depth of rehearsal and depth of learning that you would normally put in a rehearsal, but you're just changing the level to meet what is possible when the students are at home. The next thing to do is to prepare all of your materials for distribution and plan whatever your rehearsals might be. It's important to remember that a virtual choir is not this end product. We're not trying to put it out there in the world and that's just what we're doing and there's nothing else happening. This is still teaching music. So it's important for you to provide as much scaffolding and to include music learning throughout the process. It might look different than normal, but you're still teaching music through the piece you select. It's possible to meet synchronously through something like Zoom or WebEx, any of these digital platforms that allow us to meet. Then take advantage of those opportunities to teach different musical concepts, to dig in about meaning and about the piece of music itself. If you can't meet synchronously, think about other ways that you might be able to deliver the content, either by creating video lectures that students can access on their own time, or hard copy materials that you can distribute to students that will help them learn. Some useful learning resources that we at the University of Hawaii have found helpful are one, rehearsal tracks, which is pretty straightforward, but the support that students found from the rehearsal tracks was really, really important to the learning process. It's also really helpful with those tracks that they can sing with them for their final product, because then you are taking that element of singing with others and providing it to them so that they feel a little bit more secure on their parts for less experienced singers. When you're making those rehearsal tracks, it is really helpful to include something to synchronize them later. So a sound either made by the students or as a part of a recording that can be heard. That really just helps you when you're actually getting into the nitty-gritty of aligning everything and synchronizing the recordings later. Information about the piece. As I said, we're still teaching music, so it's really important to find a way to teach your students music and meaning through the piece you've selected. You should still be talking about text. You should still be talking about all the things that you would normally talk about. Find a way to deliver that content either in hard copy as forms or documents online or through videos or meetings. Score markings. A virtual choir is inherently a little bit awkward, especially when you're putting it together. We want these pieces to feel as natural as possible, so make sure that everyone has the same score markings. You want to be clear about breath marks, dynamics. Everything that goes in the score should be the same in every different copy. That way, when students or singers are performing their final version, everything lines up and that you don't have this kind of amorphous thing that feels very unnatural. It's important to think about what editing software you are going to use and what your overall vision for the final product is. I highly encourage people, especially if it's the first time they're doing it, to consider doing an audio-only recording. It requires significantly less work to produce, and it might be more accessible to students if they're feeling uncomfortable. Take away an element, and it's a really good place to start. That being said, I understand that the visual component of it is really important, and a lot of people really like having that element. It makes people feel that sense of community when you're watching it afterwards. So you need to know what you're going to use. The software and the hardware are the big components. For software, there are a lot of free options that I'm going to discuss in a moment, and there's also these industry standards, which all require some sort of payment. Many of them have a short free trial, which you could try to use, but you're better off making a decision about if you're going to choose and use one of these free options or if you're going to use one of the industry standards. In terms of hardware, I think that the most important thing to think about is accessibility and ease of use. In terms of accessibility, what I mean is, what are all of your students going to have? It's not really feasible for most of us to ship out different recording equipment with computers and microphones to our students. So what do they already have access to? You know, if they have a significant chunk of your choir only has older phones where they could just do an audio recording that would be high enough quality, maybe choose to do an audio recording. If they have phones that are going to have a high enough quality image that you can use for video, you just have to figure out what everybody has and how easily they're going to be able to use it. In terms of the software, for audio editing, there's free options which work really well, but there's also these industry standards. So the free options, things like Audacity, GarageBand, although that's only for Apple devices, Soundtrap, which is online, it has a free option and there's an educator trial. These are really great ways to compile all of the audio and to create a recording. The industry standards are things like Pro Tools, Logic, Adobe Audition, which is what I use, and Ableton. These are varying in how much they cost. There's educator pricing, I know, for Adobe Creative Cloud, which makes it a little bit more accessible, but there's an investment there that you have to be able to put in order to get access to these softwares. Any one of them will work, and many people use other ones. Ask your friends if you look into these ones and they don't feel like the right thing for you, but they're relatively straightforward to use once you get started. In terms of video editing software, again, there's the free and there's the industry standard. DaVinci Resolve is an open source version of the high-end industry standards. It can do pretty much everything that Final Cut Pro and Adobe Premiere can do. It just is formatted a little bit differently, and it is constantly being updated because it's open source. WeVideo is a great online version. It has a free trial along with educational pricing and a free version that you can use to create projects. And there's several other options, as I've mentioned. I'm going to show you in just a little while about how to use WeVideo to just create a really simple virtual choir project. Once you've decided what software and hardware you're going to use, then it's time to teach and have the students prepare the music. At the end of the day, that's still what we're trying to do here. You're still trying to teach music, you're still preparing something. So look into different ways to connect with your students, to teach the musical concepts. There's so much out there on the internet. There's all these new and different places where people are sharing their ideas. You want to provide as much support as you can through the learning process so that students really feel comfortable in the end. Once they've prepared, you have them record their parts. You should create a really clear set of instructions. That way, everyone has a product which looks roughly the same. They should know what kind of environment they should record in, how close to the camera they should be. All of this information needs to be included in your instructions so that at the end of the day, you have high quality materials to put together. Encourage everyone to do multiple takes. It's not always comfortable, but doing multiple takes, getting feedback, looking at it, and really striving for the best possible product will help you once you are editing the materials. And once everyone's done, have them uploaded to some shared space like Google Drive, Dropbox. Soundtrap allows students to put everything in. It's all accessible in the same place you're going to edit it. That allows you to create a really nice workflow. And then once you have all the materials, it's time to start editing. This is the hardest part, but the steps are really quite straightforward. Best thing to do is to familiarize yourself with the software when you are teaching. Do small little projects on your own so that you're ready to go when it comes time to do a large chunk of things. You want to start with the audio first, then start working on getting the video exactly how you want it, and finally, you're going to do any kind of effects if you're trying to pan to different sections of the choir, or do any kind of fade in, fade out. All that stuff happens at the very end. In terms of editing the audio, first step, import. Import all of the recordings into whatever software you're using. If you're doing a large number of tracks, it's really helpful to create a master audio track outside of your video editing software and then bring it in to align everything with that for your video editing. That master track allows you to do all of the more technical work in the audio stuff first, and then bring it in. Then synchronize the audio together using the waveforms. If you have not already made a master track, you're going to need to align everything in your video editing software and create the balance. You may discover, just based on where people were standing in relationship to their camera or how they recorded it themselves, you may need to balance the audio, bring up the tenors, bring down the altos, just to find something that feels a little bit more natural. Since people are singing into the void, they might sing differently than they normally do. You have to adjust for that. Adding effects, once you have really kind of got it all aligned and balanced, reverb is a really useful tool if your audio editing software has something like that. It's a great way to just round out some of the sound, and it accounts for little inconsistencies to make cutoffs where maybe it wasn't 100% clean. You can use that reverb to make those adjustments. Then you're done with that. If you are using separate audio editing software, you export that audio and then import it into the video editing, or if you're doing it all in the video editing software, you're just ready to start moving on to the video. In terms of the video, you're going to align the videos with the master audio so that the video matches the audio recording you've made. You have to shift all of the videos so that everything is exactly where it is. This is a very time-consuming process, but have the audio and the video line up exactly really adds to the final product in terms of how clean it looks. You'll have to resize the videos and place them where you want. Placement can be done just kind of freehand, just kind of guessing exactly where things are. Resizing is the same thing. Most of these softwares have a simple tool to crop or to change the size of a video. But the placement is all actually done on a grid system. There's an XY axis and you can move it around. You can use the specific numbers to place the videos in different places, or you can just do it by hand. You're going to create any effects that you desire. If you're going to go from one section to another, you should experiment and see what you like in the program. Some people really enjoy having, like, here are the altos at this part of the music where it's just the altos, and then shifting around to different groups. Those parts are very challenging to do and require a lot more cutting of clips and editing and moving them around, but that can really make the final product look very polished. And then finally, once you are happy with how it looks, you can go ahead and export that final result. So we're going to try it. I go ahead and show you in WeVideo. So right here, this is the dashboard. I'm going to start the whole process. So we're going to create a new video. I'm getting things ready. You're going to choose the size. Horizontal 16 by 9, that's the standard sideways phone setting for these days. So we're going to go with that. Here is where all your media will appear. Once you upload media to WeVideo's server, it stays there, but you can always right-click, add more. But we are going to go ahead and work on my little 4-part arrangement of the chain. So I have 4 videos. Currently, there's only 2 video tracks, so I'm going to add 2 more. Then I'm going to go ahead and drag these in. So here's my first video. And just drag them right onto each little area. Then we're done. Since I only have 4, I'm going to go ahead and just edit my audio right on in here in terms of synchronizing it and getting everything where it needs to be. And I'll do the video at the same time because they're just linked up already. As you can see, there's no waveform currently visible, but you click on each track and you can go just click on that open audio options, and then you can see the waveforms appear. I'm just going to make it all appear. There we go. Slide open. Now, at this point, you can see a couple of things. The first is that you can only see one of my videos because they're all the exact same shape, they're all the exact same size, and so they just layered one right on top of each other in the very center of this clip. So that means that I'm going to have to move things around later and resize things because I can't get 4 of those just on this one screen. But They're all in there, and the audio's all in that place. Now, everyone's going to have slightly different timing when they put these videos together. So when you just put them all in, they're not going to naturally synchronize. So I'm going to go ahead and play. Things are not together. They're not where they should be. So I included at the very beginning of this a short little sound that I put in each of the tracks. I'm going to mute them all so I can just show you exactly what it sounded like on a single track. Mute. And mute. So I've zoomed in on the timeline so I can find that single note that I sang, and then so I found this little clip right here. This sound wave is where I did. So I'm going to go as far in as I can. I'm going to say right at the top of this clip is where I'm going to put a little marker. And I'm going to use that marker to align all of the other little tracks with it. So I'm going to unmute everything else. And I'm going to start aligning them. I'm going to zoom back out so I can see where the other tracks are. And this one's back over here. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it for now. And that looks close. Move up to this one. This little sound wave here. Same thing. Just eyeball it to get them close. And last one is this sound wave here. That's about right. Now, I'm going to zoom back in to do the fine touches because if I look at it right now, it's probably close, but it's not exact. They're all in the vicinity, but that's not going to be as aligned as I want it to be. So, zoom in on this playhead. I want the start of this to be a little bit further back. Just move it. That's a bit closer. That's a little too far, I think. A lot of this you kind of get used to. You figure out exactly how things adjust as time goes on. Well, let's try that for now. Next one up. Move it over. More. It's close. And that's about right. This one here, that's where I started. And then this one went a little too far. Move it back. There we go. And let's see what that sounds like. Zoom it back out. Start right before that play track. Now, there's a little inconsistency there. It might not be exact. I might want to go in and do more of that. For now, that's going to be fine. So we've synchronized the audio. If I wanted to make adjustments, add any reverb or any of those things, I would do that now. I could bring up or down the balance. You can just use the gain on these tracks. I say this one needs to be louder or softer. You can make adjustments there. But I'm pretty satisfied with the overall balance. So we're just going to go ahead and leave that. Now, I have to get the videos in the right places. To do this, you're going to double click on a video. And that opens up the transform thing. And this is the two things that you need to get the videos where you need to be. You can adjust the scale. It's a sliding bar. I can make it smaller or larger to fill more or less of the screen. I know already that I want these to be 0.7 in terms of size. Then I can move it around. And you'll notice that as you move it, the position changes. You can also make adjustments. You can shift it over a little bit that way, or I could say, no, I want to go this way. And you can use those to make it. I'm just going to freehand it for now, and I want this one to be up here. Then I'm going to save those changes. It's exactly where I want it to be. Go down to the next video. double click. I know I want them all the same size, so it's going to be 0.7. Make that adjustment, and now I'm going to move this one down to here. And again, for now, I'm just freehanding it. If I were doing a lot of these, I might want to do it a little bit more specific, be a little bit careful about that. Next video, 0.7. Shift it up here. There we go. And then the last one, 0.7. I'm going to move that one over here. So now I have a video where all 4 parts are in here. It's a little bit rough. There's tiny little things that I might want to shift in the editing. I want to make this a little bit more even, but all of them are going at the same time. So if I want to knock it back in the beginning, I can see. Close. As I said, I think there's a little bit of inconsistency in the timing, so I'm going to go back and do that. But that's the general product. Once you're finished and you're happy with it, you can just click on finish and it'll go ahead and export that. But that's the really quick way through that. There's lots of time and details that goes into, exactly as I was saying, lining things up so they're just perfect, so that the videos are where you want them to be, and that the fades in, fade out, those effects all work out. But this is the overall process for that. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please contact me. I'm happy to help with anything related to virtual choir products and to help you get started. Thank you for watching.